Hello, everybody. Welcome to Write Something Weird. I'm Sophie Stern, a paranormal romance author in Kansas City. Today, we are going to be talking about books and writing and building bookish communities. And I'm here with my wonderful guest, Jessica Smith. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, nice
So,
to see
Jessica,
everybody.
great to see you today. Thanks for being on the show. You kind of do it all. You are a poet, a creator, a professor. How did you decide to go into the world of writing?
I think I was always a writer. I started writing basically as soon as I could write. I found pictures of myself a few days ago where I was like maybe two and trying to write on a notepad. And once I once I discovered poetry, which was also when I was really young, I started writing it. So I think it's just one of those things that some people have a drive, you know, like a
Yeah,
serious internal drive to just write. So
yeah,
that's me. Yeah. And I'm a professor partly because you most people need a job to
mhm,
write. Like most people can't make enough money off of writing to not have another job, which I think
yeah,
is kind of sometimes a misconception. People think that they can make a lot of money writing, but even really popular novelists like rarely make enough money from just writing.
yeah.
Sometimes you can make additional money from like selling the movie rights to your book if you write fiction.
Mhm.
That's not so true if you write poetry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up because I know a lot of novelists do have the goal of one day like writing full time. But yeah, it can be really challenging. The last statistic I heard was the average book makes up to $4,000 in its lifetime.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. I mean, in poetry, I was surprised about this when I first started publishing poetry books. Uh, One of my friends was working for Small Press Distribution, which is a distributor of poetry books. Like your press sends the book to this warehouse and they then send it to bookstores or whatever. So he said that good sales for a poetry book is like 300 copies.
oh wow.
That's
Okay.
good. Yeah. So my first book sold like maybe 800 copies, and that was like really good. He
Yeah.
said that even for like major poets like Maya Angelou, a few thousand books is a lot for poetry.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe that's changing a little because there are major figures like Amanda Gorman who
Right.
appeal to multiple markets. Like she can sell for children or YA or
Yeah.
adults. So having multiple markets probably helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all like really good information to have, especially because I know, like we said, so many people do want to pursue this as like a full-time career, and it's definitely really challenging, especially if you don't have that much work out yet, or depending on the genre that you're playing with.
Totally. And even like, I have a friend who had a six-figure book deal. Um, but that, and she quit her job.
Hmm.
But even that six-figure book deal, that's like a 3-year contract.
Hmm.
So she had to write the books, which is work. Like that's work. You have to sit down
Yeah.
every day and do that, just like you would if
Hmm.
you had a job. You don't just like sit there waiting for like inspiration to hit. It's a
Yeah.
job. And then also like her husband still has a job. So
Yeah.
if you have two incomes, it's a little easier to like quit your job and go for it. But if you don't, then it's like a
Yeah.
lot harder to have that kind of um like have that faith in yourself, I guess,
Yeah.
to just quit and believe that there will be another contract.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that all kind of goes to show that it kind of is a grind in some ways. Like writers always have to be writing and producing. And there's also a lot of pressure to do that as well.
Yeah. Which can take some of the fun out of it, honestly. Like
Yeah.
being a poet with a job, like
Mhm.
poetry becomes the thing I do for fun, to not be
Yeah.
working. So
Hmm.
even though it takes a lot of work and a lot of different kinds of work, it's not tied to how much money I make.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice, actually.
Yeah. Well, and I like that because I feel like you can express yourself artistically a little bit
Yeah.
more without that fear of, is this going to sell? Like,
Yeah. Is this going to be
that sort of thing.
marketable? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And has somebody already written this? Like,
Yeah.
let's say that you're a fiction author and you're writing a set of YA fantasy novels about a boy who is like partly a wizard and goes to wizard school,
Mhm.
and then somebody else comes out with it first. That's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely. Yeah. There is a lot of pressure in being a writer. Now, you have a poetry collection out called How to Know the Flowers.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that and what it was like to put that collection together?
Yeah, so in 2017, I was working at a boarding school and I lost my job when I repeatedly complained about sexual harassment in the workplace. And I had like a long record of what was happening. And when I shared the record with my boss, hoping that something would like occur, like a good
Yeah.
thing, I was fired. Which I didn't know at the time was possible. Like I was 37 and I just didn't know that that was what would happen. I didn't know that the businesses are usually more concerned with like protecting the business than like protecting the
Yeah.
employee. So once I learned that, I found that a lot of women already knew that, and that it was just kind of one of these things that I guess we don't talk about that much. So
Yeah.
I wrote this book out of my grief for losing that job as kind of a way to move through it. And at the same time, I was teaching myself how to dye with natural materials, like
Okay.
go out and gather flowers and produce dye from them. This was
Oh,
just what I did with my grief. I was just moving
yeah.
through it with a new artistic practice. So I combined those experiences, like the experience of grieving and the new artistic practice, and like wove them together into a story that's kind of a frame narrative. Like it starts with has something has clearly gone wrong, but we don't know what it is. And
Okay.
then as you move through the poems, you kind of piece together what it was in the way that when you're undergoing a traumatic experience, like you can't put it all together at once. Like your
Mm.
mind is protecting you from knowing what happened.
Yeah.
So it's kind of reproducing that experience, I think, for the reader of like what something is wrong here, but what is it? And
Yeah.
then as the book progresses, like two-thirds of the way through, it kind of starts moving back up into like a happier territory of healing and movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually wrote that book very fast, in maybe in 3 months,
Oh, wow.
where I was just writing all the time
Hmm.
because I was unemployed, and uh, and I had like a severance package.
Hmm.
So as I wasn't even trying to look for a new job. I had like 3 months where I could just write, so I
That's
did,
great.
and yeah, it's like a little accidental like writing retreat.
Yeah.
So, so then I decided to go to an MFA program. And in that
Okay.
MFA program, I edited the book and then I sent it to some contest and it was like picked up immediately. I think just because
Wow.
the experience was so raw and
Hmm.
so many people have gone through that it was
Yeah.
kind of hitting a nerve.
Absolutely. Well, and I feel like you said, with such a relatable topic that so many people understand or this has touched their own lives in some way, I'm sure that played a big role in readers reacting to the poems.
Yeah, and also that it's like, people say they don't need poetry, and then
Mhm.
like, oh, who cares about poetry? Nobody reads poetry. But whenever you're going through something hard, that's exactly what you go to, whether it's
Yeah.
poetry like a Bible verse or a hymn or a
Yeah.
pop song or like a real poem. Like people are always going toward poetry when they have something serious to express
Yeah,
and they can't put it in words. And I think
absolutely.
the experience of like losing one's job because of sexual harassment is like a really specific experience. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like, I mean, there's a lot of good breakup poems out there, but it
Mhm.
wasn't a breakup poem. I mean, it's kind of breaking up with your job, but
Yeah.
it's a very particular experience that I had that I could speak to. And I think that, like, as you're writing, whether you're writing poetry or anything else, like finding that specific thing that you know that you have that you can offer is like that's your magic. Like that's the
Yeah.
ticket. So,
I like
um,
that.
like I know everybody has these like universal experiences. We go through
Mhm.
breakups, we experience death and joy and love, and those are all important things to write about. But finding another way to write about them, or finding like this is a book about grief, but
Mhm.
finding kind of another angle on it was
Mhm.
useful for writing things that felt new and moving and raw.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love with poetry, I feel like you can pack so much emotion into like such a small space.
Yeah.
So I'm primarily a romance novelist, but my friend Meg Becker and I, she's also a local romance novelist, we started dipping our toes into local poetry readings and going to poetry clubs and things like that. And we've both been so, yeah, it's been so fun, but we've been so surprised that you can put so much emotion in a poem.
I
Like,
think, yeah, I think also like doing cross-genre work like that is really important because
mhm.
um sometimes poets have trouble ordering a collection, which is when
Ah,
they put a book together, deciding what order the poems go in. And I think reading novels and being in my specific MFA program where everybody went to all of the sessions, regardless of what genre you were working in, was
yeah,
really helpful for me thinking about like plot and character
yeah,
development so that this collection kind of makes sense as it evolves.
yeah.
Um, and like you said, I think people who write prose can learn from poetry like how to pack things, how to
Yeah,
pack a punch in just a few words and really pay attention
yeah,
to like what three words they're putting together.
exactly. So how do you feel like writing poetry compares to like chapbooks? Is that a similar
Oh,
experience?
I love chapbooks as a form because they're short and they usually come out rapidly.
Yeah.
Um, and when I'm writing a book, it's a longer process, usually
Okay.
years. And by the time I finish writing it, I feel like kind of the moment is over.
Okay,
So
that's fair.
with
Yeah.
with chapbooks, it's like they you write it, it comes out, and it's like there. It's almost like kind of a medium point between writing a post on Blue Sky and like writing a full book. So, and also like I like the punk aesthetic behind chapbooks. Now there are
Okay.
like chapbook contests that you have to
Yeah.
enter, you have to pay fees. But in the olden days, like 10 years ago, chapbooks were just something you ran off on your like copier and
Yeah.
stapled and gave out to people, or maybe exchanged for a few dollars, more like a zine.
Yeah.
And I think that aesthetic really appeals to me because you can just share your work with somebody else and maybe it resonates with them. And it's not about money and it's not about like having an important publisher. It's just about the very basic, like, I am a person, you are a person, here's
Yeah.
poetry. Yeah.
I
I
love
also
that.
find that
Oh,
you
go
can
ahead.
do more experimental things with chapbooks than with full
Yeah.
books. Because you can just kind of play around and then you can bind them in cool ways because you're only making like 100 of them. So,
Yeah. That is cool. I absolutely love to see how people present like zines or chapbooks, how they put them together, how they fold them, what's
mm,
inside of them. I feel like you can be really creative with it and have a really good time with it.
yeah, I agree.
So you mentioned Blue Sky, and that's actually how you and I met. which I think is really fun. I love connecting with other creators and creative people on Blue Sky. I feel like it's such a fun creative community. There are so many writers and poets and novelists and professors. Have you found a pretty good creative community on Blue Sky, or where do you
Oh
go
yeah.
to find like that writer community?
I mean, I feel like I've been building community for decades, and it is a
Yeah.
slow process. My wider poetry community comes from lots of different contexts, kind of slowly merging. So,
Okay.
you you meet somebody in college, you introduce them to someone you met in grad school, and all of the communities kind of forge together into this
Yep.
massive community. And so now when I go to like AWP, which is a big writers conference that usually happens in March. I feel like I know everybody because
Yeah.
it's just been so long. I've been there around so long that I just kind of met almost, it seems like I know everybody.
It's so fun.
But that takes a long time to build and it takes work
Yeah.
and it takes keeping in touch with people, which is
Mhm.
a like an that's a process. You can't just
Yeah.
like assume it's going to happen. So Blue Sky is a good way to stay in touch with people and to make those connections across communities. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you should follow this person who would really like them. Um, and even building my community on Blue Sky, I'm sure this was also true for you, took time.
Mhm.
So I had a friend who joined Blue Sky. She had a lot of followers on Twitter, like
Okay.
thousands.
Okay.
And she joined Blue Sky and she was like, why do you have so many followers? And then she left because she was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, I've been here for like a year and I've been
Mhm.
talking to people.
Yeah.
So like you can't just like dip your toes in and feel like it's gonna magically happen. You have to be there and talk to
Yeah.
people. Um, and you might start off with 5 followers and you just keep interacting with people and more people
Yeah.
follow you.
I think that's such a great explanation. And so this year was my second time going to AWP, and I loved Blue Sky during the conference because I feel like everybody was just like, here's pictures of what I'm doing. Here's the sessions I'm in. Here's the
Yeah,
book fair. Here's the reading.
yeah, totally. Um, I that kind of interaction also between like your real world experiences
Yeah.
of AWP or other conferences, and Blue Sky are places where you can forge new connections and see people in real life and reinforce those connections.
Yeah.
Um, and I just want to say one more thing about connectivity, which
Yeah.
is I don't see connectivity in writing as networking in the
Hmm.
same sense that people network in business to get
Okay.
sales.
Yeah.
They're different.
Right.
So like if you're on LinkedIn, then the networking you're doing is probably to find jobs or make
Hmm.
sales or create some kind of better like
Yeah.
money. It's money related. And then writing, I feel like a lot of these relationships are not about money or making sales, or finding a publisher. They're about finding people who understand you,
Hmm.
who understand the experience of being a writer, who
Yeah.
understand things that you're writing about,
Oh,
and
yeah.
just being seen by other people. And
Yeah.
that experience, I think, is a way more valuable than like making a book sale or finding a publisher. But I'm also a poet, so I have a different perspective on these things because I
Yeah.
know I'm probably not going to make a lot of sales. So that really takes the pressure off. You can just be a person.
I love that. Yeah, and you're totally right. It's a very different experience. I feel like building a writer community is all about not being alone. Writing is such an
Yeah.
isolating experience. We have to spend so much time just with our computer, with our notebook, just thinking. And compared to other activities like playing softball or tennis or pickleball or whatever, when you're a writer, you do tend to kind of spend a lot of time in your own head. So
Oh,
building that
totally.
community
Yeah.
means, yeah, we can kind of talk to people and be like, am I crazy? Is it
Also,
okay?
when you're writing about really intense subject matter, like your
Yeah.
feelings, your grief, your love, like, and you're also in your head sitting alone at your desk, like this is Mad Woman in the attic territory, you know. So
Yeah.
getting out of that and like talking to other people is really comforting, validating.
Yeah.
Um, but also, I feel like sometimes if you're interacting with somebody at a conference or whatever, and
Mhm.
you can tell if they really want to engage with you as a person or
Mhm.
if they are trying to network. And
Yeah.
I feel like I even sometimes I'm like, am I interacting with this person or am I networking? And
Yeah.
then if I'm networking, I'm like, I just like take a step back and I'm like,
You're
I
like,
need
I'm
to,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
I need to just not do this because this is not the person that I want to be, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like when you have a community, it can really help push you as a writer. And that leads me into my next question. As a professor, have you found that working with students has changed the way you approach writing?
Um, yes, I think that reading other people's writing in general, and
Hmm.
of course you know this, is like really important to the process of writing.
Yeah,
I would say you need to read at least twice as much as you're writing,
I agree.
because you need to know what other people are doing, how they're doing it, just seeing what's up. And you can get a lot of ideas that way.
Yeah,
And it also improves your writing, like gives you more vocabulary, gives you more tools, ways of doing things. So I think one thing that I've learned from working with students and working with student poetry is to be really, really specific in my writing. So,
oh,
for example, in How to Know the Flowers, I
mhm.
never, or I don't know if I never, but I try not to just use a noun like tree. I try to
Yeah,
say exactly what kind of tree it is. And this is also like a matter of like eco ethics because I live in a very biodiverse state and I want to record the biodiversity of Alabama.
interesting.
But also from a writing perspective, getting down into the weeds of exactly what you mean, it makes the poem pop. It gives it
Hmm.
a specificity and it also it makes it not one more vague poem about love, you know.
Yeah,
It's like a very like uh, yeah. So, you know the Icebox Plums poem by William Carlos
yeah,
Williams?
yeah. Hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
a meme on Twitter. Yeah. I mean, part of the thing that I think people like about that poem is that it's about plums. Like it's a very specific poem about plums. And the word
Yeah,
plum is fun to say. And it's like there aren't that many poems about plums that I
yeah,
can think of. So being super specific it makes the poem more special and it kind of draws the reader in more than trying to make like a universal poem that's about a
yeah,
universal thing. So the poem about the plums in the icebox is about a moment of eating plums that are
yeah,
in an icebox. It's not even a refrigerator yet, so it's like historically marked as this
yeah,
specific time. And you ate the plums, someone else wanted them. And this is a really, really specific thing,
yeah,
event at a specific historical moment in a specific season when plums are ripe. And instead of like writing a poem about like I used to love someone and then they left, it's
mhm.
just it's I think the specificity is what's really charming and what
Yeah.
pulls you.
Absolutely. And you used the word universal a minute ago, and it kind of sparked something. I do a lot of technical writing too, and my day job is in marketing. And sometimes I will have someone come to me with a project, and I'll say, "Who's our audience?" And they say, "Everyone."
Yes,
And it's like, no, no, it's not,
yes,
we're not, it's not everyone. It's a small group.
yeah. And the weird thing is like the more specific you are, the more universal it can be. Like uh
Absolutely.
when you write a poem about being sorry that you took the plums, like
Yeah.
that's a really specific occasional poem to a
Yeah.
specific reader, the person whose
Mhm.
plums you're taking. yet it's like universally beloved. So like it's almost weird how the more specific you get, the more likely it is to appeal to more people
Yeah,
than if you try to be vague and appeal to more people.
absolutely. Well, I think if you're vague, you kind of lose that emotion that you can pack into a story or a poem when you're being more specific. And so it's harder for it to resonate with people if it's vague.
Yeah, I agree. Also, like your own personal experience and your
Mhm.
very specific personal experience is what gives it that like power and rawness and um that's what is kind of taking a leap of
Mhm.
like what are you risking? What are you putting at
Yeah,
risk? What are you putting on the page that is risky for you emotionally?
yeah,
And when you are not specifically risking something yourself, then
yeah,
it comes across like
it
you
does.
we know you're not
People
risking
can
anything
tell.
and we
Yeah.
don't care.
So that leads into my last question for you very perfectly. You are not afraid to write about very difficult topics, and you've written about many things that are personal and challenging. What advice would you give to writers who are afraid to take that risk?
I would say like get comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
Like sit down
Okay.
and get comfortable. Like because we're only here once. We are mortal beings. We only have our one specific life and
Yeah.
experience, and you need to like embrace that at a deep level. And I think that's something that poets go through. We have like existential crises before we can write. So
Yeah.
if you're not comfortable with that dark night of the soul, then poetry might not be for you. But um, yeah, but I think it's like, people are looking for something when they read poetry. And I'll talk about prose in a second, but when they read poetry, they're looking for a specific kind of deep emotional experience usually.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can get that across is for you to have that deeper emotional experience. It's gonna come across if you didn't.
Yeah.
So, and this is also what makes a lot of classic, beloved poems stay that way because they really pulled something out of the writer and their guts are there on the page, and your guts are like waiting to be spilled too.
Yeah.
So, when you read it, it's like all your guts are merging together and it's beautiful. But with prose, I think it's also similar. Like you have to
Mm.
have your own personal perspective, even if you're
Yeah.
writing about something that doesn't seem personal. Like, let's say that you're writing like a fantasy novel, and it's
Mm.
about like dwarves and I don't know, elves. So
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like a personal experience because not a lot of people have experience with elves. But there's something behind those characters, something
Yeah.
behind the way that they act that is universal and part of a human experience, and you have to bring your human experience to that character or that table
Yeah.
to draw the reader in. So I think, if you're afraid of having feelings or going or putting them on the page, um, that's okay, but it's something to work through because that's that's what people want. They want to read
Yeah.
about your experience. Um,
Absolutely.
and another wrinkle to this was that, for example, when I wrote How to Know the Flowers, I was under what's it called? DN,
Like an NDA?
like don't talk about. Yes, DN.
Okay.
I was like a DNR. Um,
Similar.
it's
NDA.
NDA. So I had to find ways of writing that didn't violate it.
Okay.
And I went to a panel at AWP that same year, a few months before this happened, that was about how to write about really difficult topics that you are kind of not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
One of the presenters talked about um, he had been put through a conversion camp for gay
Okay.
kids,
Hmm.
and his home community was still very like conservative and homophobic.
Okay.
And he knew that writing this book was going to make a lot of people uncomfortable and unhappy in the specific community he was coming from. And I think that's a kind of common thing that you're like, if
Yeah.
I write about this, is my mom going to hate me?
Yeah.
Um, and like uh, you're a writer, that's your job. You gotta
I
write it.
know.
You gotta write it
Yeah.
down. I feel like that you have a higher calling as a writer to record human experience than you do
Yeah.
to, keep somebody happy. But if you're struggling with that part of it, where you feel like you
Yeah.
can't write about something because someone might be mad or sue you, then
That part. Mostly that part.
then I guess just, consider whether that's the thing to write about now. You could always write
Yeah.
about it later. And
Yeah.
you can always hide it. Like you can write a story about elves and how they were fired for sexual harassment.
You know what? I would read that.
Yeah. So there's a number of ways to kind of get around the problem of I have this thing to write about and I can't write about it.
Yeah.
Uh, if that can't is coming from outside pressure. But if it's coming from inside pressure, I think that's just something you have to sit with and get over. And that's another
Yeah.
place where reading other people's writing helps because you can see that other people have been brave and
I like that.
and you can also. Yeah.
I love that. Well, this conversation is leaving me feeling very inspired. So I think that's a great note for us to end on. Jessica, you have been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely to talk to you.